Hello, and good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on which part of the world you are in. And welcome back to Mlika Conference. We've been here for 2 days now. This is our third day, which is the climax, and we're looking forward to climaxing the whole event this afternoon as we unveil the top 100 startups, as we had made a promise and explained on how the program started from earlier in the year. So great to see many people signed up, ready to go. We've got a program lined up, and I'll give a few details in a little while. My name is Dr. Tony Mwansa. I'm currently the CEO of Kenya National Innovation Agency. I'm a few days old in the new government agency that is meant to nurture and support and catalyze the innovation system in Kenya. So through partnerships, through programs, we hope, that over the coming years, we'll strengthen our. And this is just but the first participating in, partly because I was involved in founding it and shaping it. So Mlika, for those who are joining for the first time, is a Swahili word that comes from Mulika. Mulika is shine light on something. And what we're trying to do is to identify a set of startups using a certain framework where people are nominating them. And then we've got an independent jury that evaluates them. And then here we arrive at something we're calling 100 promising or progressive or emerging startups. Now, out of that, we then try to shine some light on them. And part of that shining of light is trying to build capacity, enhance, knowledge, expose to networks of investors, and so on and so forth. So what did we do the last 2 days? We started off with a masterclass on Wednesday, where we immersed ourselves on the do's and don'ts, strategy development for, fundraising, timing, the phases, the landscape, and so forth. Then on Thursday morning, we moved into listening to some of the cases of startups that have succeeded in resource mobilization. So we had 4 startups who shared their journeys, and they candidly gave their story about what is it that worked, what didn't work, why did it not work, and why did it work, and so forth. And it was really passionate, and we could tell that it's very, very difficult to disconnect the individuals, the team, or the startup for that matter, and the fundraising effort. Pretty much, the individual defines where they want to go, be very committed about where they want to go, builds the team along the same vision, and then transitions to look for the kind of funding that fits their needs. Then in the afternoon, we transitioned to the third stage, third session of our conference, and we started looking at what are some of the products that are available from different partners. And we had an engagement of 4 different providers of funding programs that are available out there. And we learned about, some of the expectations, some of the challenges they face, the opportunity they see, their vision, and so forth. And I think what really stood out is that investor relationships is basically a partnership. So rather than us versus them kind of mindset, it's more that, hey, we can help you work together to build the enterprise to the next level. And that's how we closed yesterday. Now we are transitioning to this third day, and we're going to be getting to engage with the broader ecosystem. What are some of the industry shapers? What are they doing? And how might that influence the next stages of the ecosystem in Kenya? How might that affect your startup as an individual? And what do we expect to see over the coming years? Now, government plays a role in this. Development agencies play some role in this. Academic institutions play some role in this. And slowly these things are beginning to converge, and there's more and more synergy and collaboration in the ecosystem. Now, as our conference has been going on, we have a number of partners who designed the Mlika program, starting off with the University of Nairobi that was kind of running the operational issues under C4D Lab, which is one of the innovation hubs there. There was Make IT Africa, who supported technically. We also had Kenya National Innovation Agency, who joined in trying to increase the visibility of this initiative. ASEC, who have supported from a private sector perspective, and among others who also chipped in one way or another. Our goal is that in the coming years, we'll continue to grow this initiative, that it becomes a flagship program in the country. Okay, so as we get into this activity, we are active on social media, and you can tag Mlika Startups. And then for this year, we're also using Kenya's Emerging Startups 2020. And you can tag Make IT Africa, ASEC News, Kenya Updates, UNBI, at Bafunde, who are hosting us where we are now. And we hope that that conversation also keeps going as well. Of course, this is digital, so there are a little bit of limitations in the way the event runs, but we make the best out of it. Let's innovate. All right, so to start us off this morning, I have attracted a few of the partners who have made this program work. And one of our guests, who is actually right with me in the studio, is Tracy Weru. Now, Tracy has been with Make IT for some time now, and she's a project coordinator, and she'll just elaborate a little bit why be involved in a program like Mlika, why help establish it, and what is it Make IT does, and maybe what might we expect into the future. So it's my privilege and honor to invite Tracy Weru, who's right with me. Please come along.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Weru. I'm the project coordinator for Make IT in Africa. Make IT in Africa is a digital entrepreneurship initiative that aims at giving startups in Kenya and Africa as well, access to finance, access to skills, access to market, and ecosystem support. Currently, Make IT in Africa is being implemented in 5 African countries. That is Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania. Not Tanzania, sorry for that. I meant to say Kenya and Rwanda. Yes, so some of the initiatives we've done are aimed around what I just said: access to skills, market, finance, and ecosystem support. We partnered with SC4D Lab, University of Nairobi, to give startups visibility to investors. That's the reason we came about with Mlika. We want to give startups a platform where they can be recognized by local investors as well as international investors. So I hope you all enjoy this session, and I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you.
And it's great to have such partners. And then my goal and my dream is that, more partners will come on board as we nurture the movement, and increase that visibility and consolidate the network and partners from an investor perspective, and also create that pool and the linkage, pool of startups and the linkage that makes the whole flow to work effectively. So let me tell you a little bit about Kenya National Innovation Agency. Now, not many people know about this organization, but some years back, about 6 or so years back, the Ministry of Education had been building a movement around how you strengthen research and how that leads into innovations and inventions, and potentially how that becomes commercialized. And about 2013 or so, through an act of parliament, 3 organizations were established. That's NACOSTI, which is the National Council of Science and Technology and Innovation, which drives more the policy and licensing of research and so forth. And then there was a National Research Fund, which was set up to fund research in the country. And then there was Kenya National Innovation Agency, whose mandate was largely to nurture and promote and catalyze the innovation ecosystem. So the idea around research that comes from university needs to get commercialized. Some of it needs to get commercialized. If there is a startup that can emerge out of it, if there is an incubation hub, if there is licensing model that can emerge, whatever it may be. So then the Kenya National Innovation Agency was then established, and an acting CEO was put in office to help build the instruments of that organization. So I just joined about 2 weeks ago as the first substantive CEO to now begin to operationalize most of this that had been conceptualized. And from a mandate perspective, The entity is going to champion a lot of capacity building, skills development, and that ranges all the way from primary school to post-university. Everybody needs to kind of appreciate the issues of innovation, issues of technology, issues of commercialization, issues of intellectual property management, and so on and so forth. So we will come up with a bunch of programs in the near future that people can tap into. We will also be supporting funding as a way of moving research into possible products, startups, for them to kind of like pilot and test their programs and products and so forth. We'll work very closely with innovation hubs. We'll also deal with the commercialization. Now, commercialization mostly pushing research into the next level of establishing startups, ensuring that we have appropriate frameworks for innovators to work. We need to have a set of standards, bare minimum practices or best practices in innovation hubs, accelerators, incubators, and so on and so forth. We will support a lot in the establishment of science parks in academic institutions. We just launched one this just past week. The groundbreaking ceremony was done at Dedan Kimathi University of Science and Technology, and the goal is that there will be a few more coming up, and hopefully in the coming years we can have as many practically possible parks. We're also going, as Kenya, we're going to push a lot on policies and the legal framework to support innovation. So it's an institution that has been given that mandate, and so we can expect a lot of movement from a policy and legal framework perspective. Of course, we can't do this alone. It's going to take partnerships, and partnerships from other government agencies and those that we work very closely with, including KIPI, KEBS, KIRDI, among others. And then we'll also work very closely with universities. That mandate is very, very strong. We'll also work a lot with development agencies and partners, other countries through embassies, and we'll also work with private sector because it's very clear that government can be very useful in the establishment of the frameworks and probably seed funding, but then private sector has to pick from there. So that's a little bit about Kenya, and that is why we are here. That is why Kenya is supporting this program. Okay, so now, as I had also promised, by around 9:15, we're going to transition to the next presentation, and this is a very special person in the innovation and startup networks. We have a special guest who has been associated with the Innovation Network for a while and has been championing things from the World Bank and from the government. And her work is actually seen in the ecosystem. So it's my privilege to invite Florence Kimata for her keynote. And Florence Kimata is basically a business reforms advisor. Probably that's a very good title, Business Reforms Advisor at the Ministry of East African Community and Regional Development, focusing on business reforms and transformation. That's the department that she is involved in. So in a little while, Florence comes in. Hi, Florence, how are you?
Hi, Tony. How are you?
Very well. Good to see you. Looking sharp and ready to go.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah.
Great to see you. So yeah, I mean, it's my privilege to introduce you to the network of people who are participating digitally. Of course, I'm sure you can't see volumes of people right in front of you as it would have been in our original planning. Now, let's blame it on COVID. But here we are, and you're going to give your keynote speech. So my invitation to you is that you can go ahead, give us a little more detail about yourself, and be free to get started. So we will coordinate technologically to make sure that you're all facilitated. Over to you, Florence.
Thank you very much, Tony. Such a pleasure to be here, to be once again engaging with the ecosystem. This is something I do in my work, but I'm also very passionate about in terms of seeing how we can strengthen, entrepreneurs through an ecosystem approach. So I was previously the SME advisor at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives. Then now it's the Ministry of industry, trade, and enterprise development. And really my role was championing policies and interventions to support startups and SMEs, participated greatly in the Nairobi Innovation Week, and now I transitioned to the flip side of enterprise development, which is enabling environment. And that is what I'm doing at the Ministry of EAC as a business reforms advisor, looking at how we can improve the environment for businesses to establish themselves and to thrive. So I have a presentation. I decided to make it very practical so that I can showcase some of the reforms that we are doing. Because part of the, one of the issues I saw with entrepreneurs when I was at industry is the lack of information. So information is not readily accessible, and sometimes information is all you need to be empowered as an entrepreneur. I'm happy to share these reforms that we are currently doing in government, and I'll do this by way of a presentation. So I will go ahead and project my presentation. So I will be making a presentation on the Doing Business Reforms agenda, which is currently my role under the department in the Ministry of East African Community and Regional Development that I'm currently under. And this is a newly established department. It was actually established through an executive order in 2019. And the role of the department is, one, to facilitate and enhance ease of doing business. Secondly, it's to identify and recommend business reforms for promoting businesses that make Kenya competitively within the region and internationally. We are also charged with the responsibility of coordinating engagements with government and private sector. So we frequently call out for, requests for any areas that would need reform to enable the enhancement of the business climate or business transformation. So what is doing business, and how do we do this? So doing business is founded, is based on an index that was established by the World Bank. They use the index to rank countries. However, as a government, we have followed the index for a couple of years, and we are part of the ranking, but the government of Kenya decided to embed the reforms agenda within a specific department, and that was the genesis of the ministry. And the Doing Business agenda is really based on the principle of economic activity that benefits from clear rules. And by rules here, I mean the laws, regulations, processes, automation, just clear ways of doing business that would help businesses thrive. So such rules are more effective in promoting growth and development, and they are efficient, transparent, and accessible. And I think this will become clearer as I show you some of the reforms that we are undertaking and have undertaken over the last few years. So the rules create an environment for new entrants to drive their innovative ideas and to get their businesses started, and where firms are able to be productive, to invest, to expand, and to create jobs. So the doing business is all about the establishment and growth of firms. Role of government policy on a day-to-day basis is therefore, a central focus on doing business. A lot of the government services that are provided are supposed to be enabling businesses. So this is our role, critically looking at those services that are offered by government and how we can improve them in terms of improving cost efficiency and making it easier for businesses to do their business. So we look at 12 areas of regulation that affect small and medium enterprises, and how this is implemented. You first start with working with the largest city in an economy. So for us, a lot of the reforms have been implemented first in Nairobi, but have slowly rolled out to the other counties, because you want to start with a unit, a city, and perfect the reforms and learn from it and be able to roll out throughout the country. So what we do is to also use a standard case study so that when they're assessing different countries, they're able to assess based on a certain case study. But for our own benefit in our country and for our enterprises, we also, go beyond the case study to be able to reach out to businesses that are not covered within the scope of the case study. So what does doing business look at? And these are the areas of regulation that I mentioned. Doing business analyzes regulation that encourages efficiency and supports the freedom of business. So we look at the whole life cycle of a business. And we start from opening a business, to getting a location, to accessing finance, to dealing with the day-to-day operations of a business, and to operating within a safe environment. So that is the broad spectrum of the areas of reform that we look at. And more specifically, we look at very specific indicators like how you start your business, how you deal with your employers, with your employees, how you deal with construction permits, how you get electricity and other utilities, how you register your property in the event that you want to acquire property or transfer property, how you get credit, how minority investor interests are protected, how you pay taxes, how the businesses trade across borders. We are now looking at a new area of procurement, which is contracting with government. How do you make it easy for businesses to do business with the government? It's a key area because we know the opportunities that procurement with government can unlock, particularly for our small and medium enterprises. We look at enforcing contracts and looking at, contracts in commercial courts and how, we can accelerate decisions, as and when you have cases in commercial court that affect businesses. And we also look at how do you resolve insolvency in the best way so that you do not adversely affect a business that will end up then being a going concern. So these are the broad areas of business regulation that doing business looks at, and now we'll go into each of them and I'll be able to share with you the reforms under each of them. So if we start with starting a business, 6 years ago, it took us 34 days in 13 procedures and an old Companies Act to start a business. Today, we can start a business in 1 day, in one step, and there's a new act to facilitate that. So it's an online process, very simple process on how you register your company in one easy step. So previously you had to do a name reservation. That is no longer a step prior to application. You just are required to submit 3 preferred names and submit your full application online. Make the payment, which is a standard fee of 10,650, and your business is registered. So some of the reforms that help us save time is, for example, most companies are required to do a NITA registration. This is the National Industrial Training Authority levy for training of employees on a monthly basis, but we have consolidated that payment of 50 shillings per month to an annual payment, so you just pay in 12 months and it's easier. Then we have also waived the single business permit, which is a requirement from the county government for all new businesses. So once you start your business, you're a starter. Instead of being, inundated with all this registration, we try to waive some of the business permits, such as the single business permit for the first 24 months to allow you to start your business. Otherwise, you will be trying to comply, and compliance then also becomes an impediment. The other thing we have waived is the registration under the Department of Health and Safety, which is required for you to register your premises. So for the first 12 months, we know a lot of businesses do not establish a premise immediately, so we are cognizant of that. So that, again, has been waived for 12 months. And then we no longer require a company seal as one of the requirements under the Companies Act. So once you do that one-step application through the BRS, the e-Citizen platform, business registration services, this is what you get. You get your certificate of incorporation at a go, you get your PIN, you get your VAT, payee, and SSF registration, and you get your CR12, which is commonly known as the official search, to confirm the directors or shareholders of your company. So that is the easy one step on how you register a business, and all these reforms have been achieved through automation, through amendments in the Companies Act, and are perfected now through practice. The second area of reform I'd like to mention is paying taxes. So we know where we've come from with regard to paying taxes, with the introduction of online payments through the iTax platform. So this is, for example, a notice which was issued last year, just notifying the public on the kind of reforms that KRA has undertaken to simplifying paying taxes. We know a lot of businesses don't usually see these notices because they're posted on the newspapers, but I mean, I'm happy to have whatever platform or forum to keep on sharing this information, because information is knowledge. Once you know something, then you don't get stranded as you run your business. So we have online filing of NSSF deductions. Previously, it was physical filing, going to the bank, pay this, but now we have a self-service platform at NSSF. As I said before, the NITA National Industrial Training Levy, which is also paid through KRA, is now payable on iTax on an annual basis, not on a monthly basis. Again, I mentioned the waiver of the single business permit. And then we have the unified payroll, so payroll submission. So we have unified, so you don't have to do separate returns for pay for NSSF, NHIF, and NITA. All that can be consolidated as done in one payment on the iTax platform, and KRA then facilitates on the back end the remittance of the portions to the various agencies. Because again, let's remember, part of the reforms is to rationalize what government is doing, and all these are government agencies. So the investment on having different payment platforms is also something that we seek to amend. And then we have the capital gains tax and stamp duty. So capital gains tax is no longer twinned up with stamp duty. So previously, and even when you're registering property, you'll be required to pay, capital gains tax, and it was twinned up with stamp duty so that you cannot pay one without the other, but that has now been separated. And then on tax audits, we have amended, you can amend your tax online via the iTax platform, and automatic approvals on upward return adjustments are given. Tax compliance certificates, you no longer have to apply and wait for them. You can do it online, and it's now available once you have all your returns in order. And then, of course, for the people who do not have smartphones, there's also a mobile USSD platform which they can leverage on to make their returns. So this is how KRA is trying to make filing taxes easier. Of course, there's a lot of work in progress and different proposals that have been received, and it's work in progress. The other area that Kenya has managed to strengthen is how do you get credit? And remember, I'm talking with regard to how government offers these services to businesses. So I'm looking at the government perspective and how they are making it easier for the private sector and for SMEs to be able to operate. So that's what the reforms look at. It doesn't generalize and look at all reforms. It looks at how are we making it easier for businesses to operate as government by facilitating easy government services. So under getting credit, we have strengthened access to credit by introducing a secured transactions law. And this is what makes it possible for most people to transact with their collateral with no discrimination. There is a new electronic unified notice-based collateral registry. What this means is that if you have borrowed from a bank, and your collateral is registered in the collateral registry, and you want to borrow from another bank, and you have not borrowed on the full value of your collateral, the other bank is able to see, because they share this collateral registry, how much has been secured from that, and then they can lend you an extra portion as long as it doesn't cover the full value of the collateral. So again, these are services that make it easier even for the financial institutions to operate and be able to give credit to businesses. Then we have credit information system legislation that allows both sharing of positive and negative credit information. So we know our credit reference bureau are now very critical in terms of supporting the risk assessment of various financial institutions. And of course, there is legislation which has been put in place to make sure that both positive and negative credit information is shared. We have also made some amendments to the Insolvency Act, and this will include protection of secured creditors' rights by providing relief in form of enforcement of a moratorium. What this means is that if a company has been put under an administration and it can still pay a loan, it helps secure the rights of the creditor, the financial institution, and it doesn't have to be an automatic moratorium. They can continue paying, they're allowed to continue paying or however it's agreed, but this is really to secure the rights of the creditor. So that's on getting credit. If I move on to now getting electricity, how has getting electricity improved? Over the last 6 years, it would take 145 days to get a connection in 4 procedures, and there was poor reliability of supply today. And we honestly ask many people, how many outages do you experience? And it's in very, very few cases that you find that there are many outages. But now in 7 days, you can get a connection. You can get a new electricity connection in 2 procedures, and there's better reliability. So what are the reforms that have been undertaken? So in terms of applying for power, of course, this has been put online. It's an online application where you apply, pay, sign your contract, and the next step is getting connected within 7 days. So very simple. KPLC also has a self-service app. How they have managed to improve their reliability of supply is to maintain, have regular maintenance of their live lines and also of their supply infrastructure. And then they schedule power interruptions, and they will tell you when there will be a power interruption. So and there are always notices out there, so you're able to plan yourself or have any backup plan. So a lot of the reforms have been driven to support businesses because we know this is a utility that is used by all businesses. The next reform is under resolving insolvency, and I have mentioned it a bit on starting a business and getting credit. So one of the reforms is the enactment of the Insolvency Act of 2015. And this act allows the continuation of debtors' business during insolvency. And I'll give you a case of Nakumat or any other company that has been in distress. Once the companies are put under administration, the company is allowed to continue operating. As long as it's a going concern, it continues operating, even if it's under administration, and that really makes it easier for the company to bounce back after the period of administration. And then the Act also provides for equal treatment of creditors in the reorganization proceedings and granting creditors greater participation in the insolvency proceedings. So the creditors who are key stakeholder during insolvency proceedings are also here covered and are allowed to participate in the reorganization of the businesses so that they can also be able to support, even if it means giving more funding to support the revival of the business, they're allowed to participate in these discussions. So resolving insolvency is targeted towards bringing back the company to operation as opposed to grinding it to a complete halt. The next one I'd like to look at is protecting minority interests, and this specifically relates to young businesses who are inviting investors into their business and what are the rights of the minority investors as and when you give out your shareholding. So 6 years ago, we had a very low extent of disclosure and extent of shareholder governance index. What it means is that the regulation did not cover, how are these businesses governed in terms of protecting minority interest. And nowadays, now with the reforms in law, we have 100% disclosure index, and we are at 60% with regard to the governance index. So what does this mean? So we have increased the disclosure requirements for any business in terms of who are the shareholders, who are the directors, what amount do they own. And this is not only on listed companies, it's for all companies. And then the strengthening of the minority investor protections by clarifying ownership and control structures. That's important. And then in 2018, there was a strengthening of the minority protections by giving shareholders a final say on election and dismissal of external auditors. So that's important. And then we have recently done an amendment of Section 289 of the Companies Act under what we call the Business Laws Amendment. Business Laws Amendment is a provision under the Business Reforms and Transformation Department to amend laws across government. So we use this Business Laws Amendment to to amend any law across government just to make it easier for businesses to operate. So we had one last year, and this year we'll have another amendment law. So what did we do with the Companies Act? We gave rights to minority shareholders with a threshold of 5% of the company's paid up capital to introduce items into agenda, and the agenda in a general meeting of the company. And then the other amendment was to also set a high shareholder threshold of 90% for any investor making a bid for the takeover of the company. The next reform area we'd like to look at is how do you enforce contracts? And we know in businesses sometimes things don't always work out, but we have a legal recourse, and we are then able to look at how we can enforce contracts for the benefit of the business or for the sake of making sure the business doesn't get affected. So 6 years ago, it was taking 465 days to conclude a dispute in the commercial court. Today, we are looking at 200 days, which is a great improvement. We know the problem we have within our courts in terms of constant adjournment of cases. So we piloted with the Nairobi Resident Magistrates Court, the commercial court, and some of the reforms that were put in place last year was one, to ensure that there is no fee which is charged for matters not exceeding 1 million Kenya shillings. So if the dispute is around an amount that is 1 million or less, no fees are charged. And then they have a fast track for determination of these cases. And so they have an online services is available for filing of the pleadings, for assessment of the court fees. And again, we say below 1 million, we do not have a fee. And then for payment of court fees in the event that the case is above 1 million. And then there's an e-service for these commercial cases. So these are some of the services that are provided online. And again, there was a legal amendment so that, laws are enacted to make sure that the e-services are managed. So benefits to users: no more lost files, no more queues, and then you can track your matters electronically, and then you have the case management system, which is also, an online system. Other reforms are in dealing with construction permits. So construction permits, we have a couple of government agencies that are responsible for issuing construction permits. You have the county government, you have the National Environmental Management Authority, you have the National Construction Authority, you have the utility company like Nairobi Water and Sewer Company. So, we'll quickly go through some of the reforms that they have implemented. A lot of them focusing on automation and as well as the regulatory environment. So if we start with NEMA, what happened is that with NEMA, it would previously take around 45 days to get an approval for an environmental impact assessment. But most projects, there can be small projects, low risk projects, medium risk and high risk. So what NEMA did was to they issued a legal notice in 2018, and which gave a risk categorization of these businesses. So for low risk, for example, you do not need a whole environmental impact assessment. What you need is a project summary, which is a very simple template of, project report. And within 5 days, you can get an approval from NEMA. Now, the low-risk projects are defined under the NEMA website. All the information is available. They are now, the template, the criteria to know whether your project is low-risk is all on the website. And they're even publishing information on the projects that have been approved through this system of the low-risk application. So in terms of transparency of information, the information is out there in public and on their websites. And they're trying to turn around, especially for the low risk, in 5 days. The National Construction Authority is charged with the responsibility of registering all construction projects. So they have also adopted a risk categorization of businesses, which is a best practice, a global best practice. And this helps in giving approvals for the different projects. So for low risk, for example, you can get your project registered in 1 day. And really for NCA, it's just the registration of the project and the consultants in the project. That's the information that needs to be given. So they have also given the parameters of what they call low-risk projects, medium-risk projects, and high-risk. Again, all this information is available on their website. So it takes only 1 day to register a low risk, and it takes 3 days to register a medium and high risk. There have been other amendments with the National Construction Agency, legal amendments to their act to improve the building quality index to address particularly the issue of collapsed buildings and how we can improve the building quality. So we did do amendments through the business laws to make sure that we are able to anchor a building code that will address the building quality index in the country. So quickly looking at the other agencies, county government has also adopted a risk-based approval system, and they have clarified what it means to be a low-risk project. Single dwelling houses, go downs, apartments of not above 4 levels, and they're having a weekly approval for any application for construction for this nature of project. So they sit on a weekly basis and are able to approve these projects and are able to release them for the construction to continue. And this is also facilitated through their e-construction system, which is something we worked on with them to develop. So you apply online, approvals are given online, and it doesn't then delay projects that shouldn't be delayed further. Then the other projects, the medium and high risk, take 14 days. Nairobi Water. So Nairobi Water was our latest institution to automate the application process. We all know what it takes to apply for a new connection in water in terms of physically filling a form, taking it to Nairobi Water offices, but now they have an online application where you apply, and it's a 2-step process. So you apply and submit all your information and pay as one step. And then the next step, once they have all that information, they're able to identify, because part of the documents you submit is your location. So they're able to identify where you are as a business, and they come and inspect, and all the information on the requirements, because you are required to buy material for your water connection and to lay the pipes. So for them, they come to inspect the premises and to inspect the connection and to connect to their source. And fortunately, Nairobi, the pipeline, I think, is well connected. Everybody should be near the water source, the water and sewer sources. So they're able to connect within 13 days. So it takes all of 14 days to get a new water connection. Again, automation has really helped this process, but also changes in the internal processes of the company and how that is done have also been part of the reforms that these agencies adopt. Trading across borders is important to us because we know most businesses are started off with an intention to scale. So not only operating locally, but operating across the region and internationally. So we have looked at how we can facilitate both imports and exports. A lot of the reforms have been about reducing the time taken, the number of documentation, the fees charged, and to automate the processes of importing and exporting. So for example, for exports, we have seen the reduction of the documents required from 9 to 6. Then reduced cost, the waiver of phytosanitary fees, the waiver of the export health certificate fees charged by the Port Health. Then we have the elimination of the declaration of agro exports by AFA on the Tea Directorate portal. Then we have a new fast track mechanism, which is quite interesting because it's a green channel that is being used to import or export what we call low risk goods. And low risk are any goods that have been made either in the industrial parks or the export processing zones, or products that have been specifically identified like tea, coffee, and brand new spare parts. Those ones qualify for the green channel processing at the port. Then we have the reduced port handling processing time, again through automation, the onboarding of KEFIS, AFA, and Port Health in a national single window. So we know Chemtrade has the national single window to facilitate imports and exports. So trying to create a one-stop for the other agencies that are also supposed to be playing a role in imports and exports on that platform. So the AFA and the Port Health have joined the single window platform. And then there is, of course, the waiver of certificate of origin for specified goods. So all this information again is on the Trade portal, and you'll be able to look at it. On the import, similarly, we have looked at how we can reduce the documents required from 10 to 5. And again, even the automation and sharing of data between government agencies makes it possible for us to reduce these documents, because once you submit to one agency, the information is available. Reduced import cost and time for brand new motor vehicle spare parts, and then clearing your cargo in less than 4 hours at a reduced cost. The new fast track mechanism, we mentioned it. Shorter queues at the internal container depot due to the smart gates, and then onboarding of KEFIs. Again, this is specifically for imports, and fast processing of the IDF and ICMF, and those are the documents required for imports. So that's for trading across borders, and then registering property. Particularly with regard to transfer of property, how have we made it easier? We know about the implementation of the Land Information Management System, which was not easy to roll out, but has eventually been adopted. So it takes now 7 days, to draft, transfer instrument, and conduct due diligence, as well as to apply online for valuation. And all this is an online process. So automation has really helped. And then once you have done that, online generation of stamp duty for payment is done in half a day as the third step. And then online payment of stamp duty is done in half a day if you pay promptly. And then the lodging of the physical documents for registration is done in 4 days as a step 5. So all of 12 days, you can transfer property in 12 days. So there are no more search fees required, no more registration fees, no more consent to transfer and fees, no rates and clearance certificate fees, because that is not a requirement to transfer property. So you do not require these rates and rent clearance certificates, because all that is automated. They are there, so you do not need to submit them. So because it's the same office that provides the clearance certificates. So trying to also rationalize information requested from government is part of the work that we have been doing. And that's all for now. Happy to receive any questions, and thank you so much.
As Florence gets back, we're inviting questions and comments based on some of these reforms and transformation that has happened in government. Some people might not even relate with these if they didn't see how painful it was before. So they might wonder, okay, it changed, but as you can tell, there has been very deliberate effort to make the services and provision of the same services from government has been enhanced and transformed so that it's a lot faster. Now, I have a set of questions that are already coming through our various channels. And so there are about 3 so far, and I can expect that, actually they now are 5 or so. So Florence, you better get ready to respond to quite a bit. So as she comes through, if you have any questions, you can post it on social media or on the channel on the right on the platform, and we'll consolidate them for Florence to respond to. Just in anticipation, this afternoon we are doing the unveiling, where we'll just try to announce all the startups that were recognized as a top 100. Now, sometimes, of course, we can have a debate about the comprehensiveness of that list, or the ranking, or where the startups are at this point in time. There's some things we are not entirely in control of. For example, it was during COVID that this, nominations were done. But there you go. I mean, the whole objective here is to try and increase visibility, and yeah, it can be subjective here and there depending on which parameters or how one particular judge looked at it and so forth. The bigger picture here is to try and increase visibility of startups and then empower them with information that can help them improve their products. Now, we can look at it from an SME perspective or from a startup perspective. Neither here nor there. The objective here is to increase as much visibility as possible of these startups. Florence, I can see you're back. The system has worked, and I kept the room busy as you were getting yourself back. So far, we've got a set of questions, so I think you better be ready. Yeah. We've been hearing you until you reached the land. It was the land transfer section. I think that's where you kind of lost connection. So a lot of reactions I can already see. So you have provoked some issues, and you better be ready towards the end to respond to quite a bit. So over to you to continue.
Actually, the land was the last bit because I'll just.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I can do it again. So the land transfer was actually the last bit where we say it takes all of 12 days now to transfer property, and you no longer need to have search fees, registration fees, consent to transfer. You no longer need the clearance certificates, for rates and for rent, because again, as I said, a lot of these documents that are requested by government are issued by the same government. So trying to rationalize documentation, data sharing in government is part of the role of our department. So that was the last indicator I was looking at, and then I had my last slide. So I'm glad that I didn't lose too much.
Yeah, looks like the gods were working in your favor, so that you don't get disconnected halfway. I think it's been excellent. I mean, there's a lot of insight and a lot of information. Now we'll transition into kind of a Q&A, and because it's already 9:56 our time, in time for the transition to the next presenter, I'll ask you a few questions. So that by the time we get to 10, a little bit after 10, we'll transition to the next presenter. And by the way, it's going to be the chairman of ASEC, so that's someone you're very familiar with. Now, there are two. Let me ask three questions. I can see there are many, and probably I'll just ask those three. You kind of try to pin them down. Number one is around access to affordable funding that is government supported. So people are kind of like looking at some of the early stage funding, what is really available. Number two, how does the country now perform comparatively with other countries? Is it we've significantly improved and is something to be proud of? And then number three is a very interesting question, and I put it number three deliberately, because this person is asking, I am in the food industry. I don't know what other area it is. I said, yeah, she's also dealing with drinking water in her business. And she says she has the following charges to deal with. County single permit license of 18,500, public health license and testing 13,000, KEBS certification 102,000, KRA custom excise license 50,000, KRA custom excise bond 300,000, KRA custom excise stamp with a minimum of 50,000, NEMA license 33,000, mandatory independent testing lab 15,000, and then she has to pay 0.5% on a monthly turnover standards level tax.
So I mean, I will start with the first one: access to affordable funding in government. And I will talk about all of government as opposed to the business reforms and transformation, because as you know, there is the Treasury and the Ministry of Industry, which is really in charge of looking at issues of access to finance. There are a lot of initiatives, particularly now, even during this COVID period, on how you can, improve liquidity for businesses. There is now the credit guarantee scheme, which has been launched and approved by cabinet and put aside 10 billion to start off the credit guarantee scheme, which essentially will de-risk lending to businesses. So this guarantee scheme will guarantee the portfolio for various financial institutions, banks, SACCOs, and so on. And hopefully we'll be able to see greater lending to SMEs who particularly do not have collateral to cover the funding that they require. On funding to startups, again, this is a conversation we have been having. During last year's Nairobi Innovation Week, I hosted a policy hackathon just to look at the pressing challenges for startups. This was one of the areas we were discussing with various ecosystem partners, and I know some of them have continued having these discussions on how we can have innovative ways of supporting particularly early stage startups. So I know that conversation is happening with some partners, particularly in the private equity space, on how that can happen, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more from private sector. The thing with funding is that a lot of funding is actually from private sector. Government only facilitates. So I know there's also a startup bill coming up. If that is an area that government can improve policy on lending to startups, that is how government will intervene, because government's role is enabling environment and policy, as opposed to actually availing the funding, because government does not have the sufficient resources to do that. But private sector does have that. So that's on access to funding. On how does the country perform in relation to other countries. So we are waiting for the results for the current year, but as at last year, we were positioned 56 out of 190 economies, which is a great milestone. We are coming from, we have leaped, rather progressed from 80 positions in the last 6 years. Our first position was position 136, now at position 56. That means they acknowledge the various reforms that have been instituted by government. I know a lot of people will say, especially the small businesses, that we do not feel the change. However, just to note that change always comes with some structure, and that is why I gave the presentation on rules. You have to change the systems, the laws, the regulations, the automation, the processes, and then the benefit of that starts trickling down to businesses. So if we amend the law today, a small business might not feel it. But later on, when you're discussing with your investors and you realize you're in a tight corner because you're a minority investor, then you will fall back on the reforms that the government has instituted. So that's one of the ways. The third question, Tony, I know it was quite lengthy, but it looks very familiar. This is something that has been circulating on the social media, and I know our cabinet secretary was interviewed on the same and gave a response on KTN last week. We have seen it a lot on social media. We went through each of those costs that have been mentioned by the business. A lot of them were not, and I'm not saying it's not genuine that she has paid, she's probably paid unofficial fees. But for example, NEMA does not charge such fees. There's no 33,000 charged by NEMA. NEMA is one of the agencies that has eliminated fees, a lot of the fees that they were collecting. So a lot of those costs are not official costs. Unfortunately, when we're dealing with doing business, we also have to deal with issues of integrity of a lot of agencies or individuals and so on. So this is an area that we also hope to improve. But yeah, I mean, we actually critically looked at what this message was saying, because we saw it on social media, and it's in our interest to make sure that businesses are not facing such hefty charges. I mean, I have just mentioned, and sometimes it's because of the lack of knowledge of what should be charged. So if you walk into a government office, or you're operating through a broker who tells you, I can facilitate all your licenses, and maybe you're paying him money that he's putting in his pocket. So I think I'd encourage all businesses to make an effort to make themselves aware. This information is now available online, like I'm telling you. COVID has also helped in that now a lot of these agencies are embracing our automation reforms that we had suggested. So the information is there. Make it your business to know what you should be paying and what you should not be paying, so that you are then not charged on your business and paying for fees which are not official fees. Thank you, Tony. I think the audio is lost.
I was trying to be a nice guy and then I forgot. So I'll just so you get a sense of what people are thinking, in as much as we don't have the time to answer them. There is someone talking about contacts, how to reach out. Yes. But I think you can also say that the website is available. But I can tell that they found your information very useful and they would want to consult. Someone was talking about how online businesses, the reforms to support online businesses, what exactly exists, or what is the same. There's a question around, I was writing all of them here as I try to pull them from different platforms. Yeah, but I'll probably send you a set of questions, and you could probably then summarize the responses, and then we can circulate to the community of the delegates. Otherwise, thanks very much, Florence. I know how much passion you have with this within this area and topic, and the work that you have done over the years. Greatly appreciated, and it was great to host you. And we look forward to collaborating. As you know, through Kenya National Innovation Agency, there is another mandate there to promote and nurture the innovation agenda from government. So I see many, many avenues of collaboration as we build our country together.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to respond to the written questions just so that we can keep on creating a platform for exchanges. We are at the Ministry of East African Community Business Reforms and Transformation Department. There is a director in charge of that unit, and we come in as about 4 consultants who are helping the ministry. So we're also happy to engage. We are a cooperative house on the 18th floor. Physically, but I mean, you can reach us online because we are now mostly working remotely.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a good day. We'll find another way to continue these conversations.
Thank you, Tony.
You too.
Have a good day.
That was Florence Kimata. What an amazing lady, passionate, comes from private sector, World Bank perspective, and supporting a lot of reforms in government to try and enhance our business environment. I mean, it's amazing to hear that over the last few years there has been a lot of improvement, and the ranking has significantly improved. 80 positions in 1 year, now talking about being positioned 56 of 190, and then they're waiting again for the next review, so probably will come down to the 30s and move down, and that makes the country even more attractive for investors and for startups coming out from outside who are willing to pitch in the country and grow their businesses here. Our next session is about ASEC. Now, Florence Kimata, who has just left, was very active in the establishment of the ASEC, which is designed to support startups from a private sector perspective, listening to the needs and trying to energize and facilitate and work with the enablers who are linked directly to the startups. So in a few moments, we will be inviting the chairman of the ASEC, that's the association, Mr. Bernard Chira, who has been very active in the startup space for several years, that we may hear his wisdom and the narrative of the association, and then engage him on a set of questions. Thanks very much. I'm glad to see Bernard Chira is about to join. And so I thought I will use this opportunity again to bring up to speed about our event. So Bernard Chira comes on board in a few seconds. Probably among the people I have met in the ecosystem, very passionate about operationalizing those desires of seeing startups grow, is Bernard Chira. Many years back, he's been active in running an accelerator, building a lot of partnerships at Strathmore. I am not fit to untie his shoes, so he has to explain himself. And then he has also been active in running, the ASEC, founding it and establishing it. And then now he's a director overseeing an acceleration program, so he will explain himself a little better. Just to bring Bernard up to speed about the Mlika program, he has a sense of it, but just to bring into context, as well as some of the delegates who are on board who may not have understood that background, Mlika is a Swahili word which came from Mulika. Mulika being, a Swahili word that means shine light on. So this program was designed in partnership with the University of Nairobi, C4D Lab, Make IT Africa, ASEC, with the intention of identifying some progressive, promising, set of startups, and then try to increase some visibility, identify some of their needs, and be a catalyst in exposing them. So over the last 3 days, we've been on the conference, which is the climax of this program. A set of startups were nominated by stakeholders, so startups were not allowed to nominate themselves. And then out of that, a set of independent members of a jury did review. It was a very intensive exercise, review the applications, and kind of made their recommendations. And then we aggregated to arrive at some 100 startups that we'll unveil this afternoon. And ASEC was, supporting the program as much as possible. Now, in my capacity as a first CEO, substantive CEO of Kenya National Innovation Agency, this is something that is of interest to figure out how to support. And that's why I gladly joined in moderating the session. So, Bernard Chira, welcome on board. We'll give you the chance. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then let's have this conversation about ASEC and its role in the innovation ecosystem and where you see things going. Over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you loud and clear. The same old guy that I know, man.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me and for hosting this wonderful initiative. I think I've been watching Mlika for some time now, and I can say it's been one of the most innovative programs, because it started, I think, not too long ago, and here we are, surviving COVID, and even at the same time, keeping the agenda of, shining the light on our startups going. So, as Tony introduced me, I am Bernard Shira, and I've been working, in the innovation ecosystem here in Kenya for a number of years. I started off in Strathmore University, where Tony actually met me there. I was his student, so he's a great mentor to me. And Strathmore, we really wanted to actually look at how do you use technology and innovation beyond training students, and that's where we started thinking about innovation hubs. We set up IBIS Africa, which has remained a very active and leading university-based incubator. So I was there for a number of years, and at that time I also started working with AfriLabs, which is a Pan-African network of hubs. And the conversation really has been, what can we really do to strengthen the innovation capacity on the continent, and how can we use this hubs or innovation clusters to actually make this work. And I've always been passionate about supporting startups and also about contributing to building the ecosystem, as it were. I transitioned from Strathmore, I think almost a year ago, and I now lead a program called Innovate Now, which is led by the Global Disability Innovation Hub. And what we're trying to do is to see how do we also bring innovation in the disability space, in the area of assistive technologies. And we are leading Africa's first assistive technology accelerator and innovation ecosystem. So, and in the course of all this, a wonderful story about ASEC, began. And I want to tell you about that story and why ASEC. A couple of years ago, I think 2017, if I'm not wrong, a lot of us in the innovation ecosystem would meet actually at the Nairobi Innovation Week. So everyone was there exhibiting, showing off their startups, showing off their programs. And I think the Nairobi Innovation Week gave us a platform to talk to each other, to ask what are the challenges, what are the real barriers, why are we not having enough success stories from our ecosystem, and what can we do? And it's for the first time that conversation was, I would say, very inclusive, because it was not just amongst the hubs and the entrepreneurs, it was also with government, it was also with private sector. And I think the idea of ASEC, really, when you think about it, it's nothing much than trying to visualize the ecosystem, trying to say, okay, so we are all trying to support entrepreneurs. We are all trying to create the best platform for supporting innovation in Kenya. How can we do that as a collective and achieve bigger impact? And I think this conversation resonated with many innovation hub leaders in Kenya, including the government at that time. I think Florence was very active at the Ministry of Trade as the SME advisor, and we started having these conversations. And what we came up with was, as we are thinking about innovation and entrepreneurship and startups in Kenya, we came up with this idea that we can have a voice, that startups can have a voice, enablers can have a voice, and they can also have a platform to engage. Because one of the gaps when an industry is coming together, whichever industry, if you don't have a strong platform to engage other stakeholders, then it becomes difficult to achieve your objectives. So we thought it's time enablers had a platform and a voice to engage for the betterment of advancing innovation. And I think as the story goes, in 2018, we were successful in registering ASEC. And what ASEC actually stands for is the Association of Startup and SME Enablers. So our primary members are innovation hubs, or the intermediaries that support innovation in this country. And we have a national agenda. Our mandate is national, to promote innovation through our hubs across the country. And we are very happy with how far we've come since 2018, when we registered in December. That's when the government gave us a certificate. And in 2019, I believe in May, we officially launched and attracted more than 65 enablers. And, for the first time ever, we had a national network talking about, the interests of the enabling space, and how that enabling space is core in enabling innovation in Kenya. And up to date, we are here. We've been working, slowly building value for our members and building those partnerships, and actually working on some projects that I'll speak about that have started bringing us closer to addressing the challenges in the ecosystem. So Tony, I don't know whether you're there, but maybe now you...
Yes, I am. I just chose to get out of sight so that all attention goes to you.
So that has been the story of ASEC. And I do want to speak a little bit about the work that we are doing, but I don't know whether you want to engage this in questions form, or should I go ahead, because I could speak for the longest time.
Yeah, the good thing is that we structured this so that we have enough time to go deep into the issues. Maybe one place to start is okay. So far, brilliant idea. There, Nairobi Innovation Week had its impact. People started engaging and connecting. Government supported, so it's more fairly inclusive, as you put it, and we're able to launch. And congratulations, because I know now you are the founding chair of the initiative. So probably one question would be, okay, so what have you been able to achieve so far? And in tangible terms, what exactly is the probably is like I can flip that question. So when you say support and grow the ecosystem, what are the specific tangibles that you're working on? What are the specific activities that help you achieve that mission? And then number two is, what have we been able to get done so far?
Yeah. So thank you, Tony. I think it's always a pleasure to speak about the work that we've done. And I think when you talk about achievements, for me, actually, the thing I'm most proud of is that we are talking to each other. That's the first step. Today,
wonderful.
And I tell you, that has a big impact, because the reason we have a lot of replication or a lot of difficulties in getting the impact of what the hubs are doing is because for a long time people have not been talking to each other. And when this started happening, we've seen very interesting things going on in the ecosystem. And I'll just give an example. We are actually in difficult times during COVID, and obviously our hubs have been hit hard by the pandemic. But one of the things we've seen, and I think it's a change of mindset, is actually more collaboration. For example, yesterday, Nairobi Garage and Meta announced a partnership where they were coming together, and this is it's really something to look at, because when you look at a co-working space and a community or club for entrepreneurs coming together, what that tells you is that people have started seeing a lot of value in the collectiveness of supporting entrepreneurs and creating value by leveraging on what other hubs have. So for me, I'm very happy that people are talking to each other. And of course, some of the tangibles we are seeing from this is new hubs that are coming up now. They have a place to go to where they could get support. They are no longer, if you were starting a hub 2 years ago, you'd be alone. You wouldn't have people to talk about the challenges you're facing. There was no community. So for me, that sense of community is a first step. But some of the other interesting things that we've done, and this is actually quite interesting in Kenya. When Florence was here, she mentioned about the Startup Act. So we have been very instrumental in working at the Senate with the Senator of Nairobi to actually contribute our voice, or the voice of the ecosystem, to the process of having a Startup Act. And I think this is going to have, of course, long-term impact once it is in place. But what we are saying is, in that act, one of the interesting things there is, can we have members of the ecosystem, participating in government support for startup? Like if government wants to start up, because what we want really is for government to recognize that we have an entity called startup, and it has unique challenges, and this is how you address those challenges, and I think that's going to be a beautiful thing in terms of laying the foundation for what we will see in the future. Because I think some of the enabling environment that needs to happen in the ecosystem have to be entrenched in strong policies, and I think this is a first step. I think we've been engaging government very, very consistently on seeing this happen, and I think the stage at which this is it's gonna be tabled very soon in the House for discussion, and I think we are following it closely, and I think it's gonna bring together most of the agencies that support startups, including Kenya. So that's something I'm proud of. We've also been working on a code of conduct for the ecosystem. And what that is, it's not really a law, but what we are saying is, if we are working together as an ecosystem, there must be things that we all subscribe to as good or bad for the ecosystem, and we must have ways of safeguarding the good practice. When you talk about doctors, they have their own code of conduct, and other professionals. So we are saying, okay, when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs, can we also have some level of code of conduct so that we can deal with some of the endemic issues we've had in this ecosystem, like, I don't know, people stealing ideas, or having initiatives that don't really have impact, that are just checking boxes and stuff like that. And this has been a co-creative process. Most of our hubs have joined the work in subcommittees, and they continue to do this work even as we go. Then we've also been able to do something I feel is quite impressive in terms of engaging development agencies and government. Now we have a project called KIEP, which is a flagship project by the Ministry of Trade and the World Bank to support the innovation ecosystem. And one of the things we've done is to actually, help the government and the World Bank understand the value of a self-organizing ecosystem, and how that can be impactful in helping to achieve the objectives of that project. And what I mean by that is, with platforms like ASEC, and I think we've inspired other sister organizations to come up. Now we have the countrywide hubs, and what we are experiencing really is a form of our ecosystem becoming more intelligent and more organized, such that when you launch initiatives, you are no longer talking to one hub, you're talking to hundreds of hubs under one umbrella. And if the idea is to attract entrepreneurs or attract talent or measure whether these initiatives are working, then you have nodes across the country that can help you to do that. And I think we are very happy to have received support from Kiev to actually execute our mandate nationally, so that we can bring more enablers together. We can have a stronger voice in voicing out what does it take to have Kenya on the global map. You know, one of our objectives also is looking at how do we position the ecosystem in the larger global ecosystem, because today innovation is no longer a closed topic. Innovation is distributed. Our startups are raising funds globally. They are playing at a global field. So how do we ensure that we are creating an environment that can produce entrepreneurs who can compete at a global standards? How do we enable the investors out there to know where great startups come from? You know, some of the hubs here in Kenya have produced wonderful companies. I saw recently a company called WorkPay that raised $2.1 million, and that's a company we incubated at IBIS in collaboration with Pangea less than 2 years ago. And I was very proud to see that they Combinator as well, which is a global startup accelerator. And I asked myself, because when I saw that post, I asked, what was the formula for creating this success? And the formula was, there was academia, Strathmore, there was an investor, Pangea, there was an incubator, IBIS Africa. And 2 years down the line, you have a startup that has received global recognition and has also raised money, significant investment. And it's also breaking stereotype that only when you have white founders in your company you can raise money. This is an entirely Kenyan team, and these are the kind of things we believe that the spirit of ASEC will inspire.
Well said, man. I when you speak these kind of things and those data points, you feel like they're goosebumps, like the blood flows even much better. And I think, look, if we don't build this ecosystem, who will? If we don't get involved and create initiatives and then follow through those initiatives to the best of our ability, then who will? Great. Now, you mentioned something about the code of conduct. And probably what I was going to, and someone is asking here about, so the code of conduct, is more like we agree this is how we're going to behave, and this is what we're going to do, and we want to believe that it's in the spirit of goodwill that we will follow through that code of conduct. Do you think that the country also needs anything higher than that? For example, what if I don't abide to that code of conduct in certain elements? Do you think that there is such an opportunity to develop something? I mean, today, if I am doing a building in Mukuru kwa Njenga, NEMA will come and tell me we expect the following. If the building is going up, I expect, some architectural design, some quantity, whatever survey, and so on and so forth. If today I'm establishing a business, a hotel, someone will tell me there are certain things that you must, abide to, and they are enforceable. Otherwise, we might take away your license and things like that. So, I mean, if you're setting up a bank and you're going to take people's money, there are certain regulatory, elements that you have to abide to, and there's someone who's going to ensure that you continuously abide to this. do you think, and I'm asking on behalf of other people here, do you think there is room to start thinking a little higher than just a code of conduct?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Tony. And I think it's an important question in the sense that when you have, let's call this the innovation economy. This is what we are trying to build here. When you talk about startups and SMEs and technology and all that, we're trying to build an economy that's driven by really innovation. So I think beyond, the code of conduct is what I would say, it's a communal thing. Like the ecosystem has stakeholders, right? So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a hub, I'm a consultant, I'm an investor. This community, will basically work together to produce the type of success that we want, the jobs, the successful startups, solving problems. And I think at that level, you cannot really create we don't want to create laws for us to engage. What we want to say is, let's keep it, it's actually trying to say, we have a culture of supporting each other, but the culture is actually supported by something we all believe in. But now when you start going beyond that, I think you start getting into what, because for me, when I look at any industry that is successful, it actually is guided by what are the standards of saying you're running an innovation program. What's the standard for training startups? What's the standard for investing? And what you will find is that the mandate of creating these standards may not be maybe a communal thing. However, there is the idea that, for example, you are the CEO of the Kenya National Innovation Agency. I think if you came to us and told us, we want to set up standards for, I don't know, training entrepreneurs, do you think, is this something you support? These are things that need to be entrenched in, I would say, at a higher level, maybe at even a policy and regulatory level. And I don't think it's entirely the work of the community to do that, but we want to inspire that. We want to talk to the Kenya National Innovation Agency and say, okay, how do we build standards for investing or for training entrepreneurs, and how can we help you? And I think also government, in my view, has a big opportunity here to actually question what is the value that this innovation sector is putting out. What standards are they ascribing to? And I think I don't know whether we'll ever have a KEBS for innovation, but I think it's one of those things where I feel the idea should be, as a a professional body of people that lead hubs, we will not wait for the laws to come. We will try and build this through the culture that we are building, but work very closely with agencies like yourself to see what we can do so that there can be standards and laws that protect the interests of startups, of innovation, and all the pillars that are required to build an innovation economy. Yeah, so
technology did what it does. It kicked us out. I don't know if Bernard, you're back. And then we can continue. There are some questions that are coming up. So I'll again do another round. Bernard, can you hear me? And probably you can hear, maybe now I'm the one who can't hear you. But great, I mean, to have Bernard explain a little bit about ASEC and the aspiration.
I'm back, Tony, I can hear you very well.
Yeah, he's getting back again. And I think what I really like about this is a spirit behind this movement. It is, how can we possibly do this better? And that's what we talk a lot in user-centered design and design thinking about how might we. No one has an absolute answer, but as we engage, we soon start finding ways of making progress. Then the other very beautiful thing that I've picked out of the ASEC experience is that we are talking to each other. Sometimes through our education processes, we are always, working in silos, and you're competing, you're trying to become the best you can be, and probably try to beat the other. Now, that's not necessarily a very valuable thing, but at least you push yourself. Now, and then also through university system, where we work in specific departments, and the mindset is generally about specializing in certain areas and focusing in certain areas. Now, this movement with ASEC is now, first of all, making people speak together, and we have people engaging together, and then on the basis of that, the collective energy starts to move us forward. Bernard, are you there? Maybe if you could refresh your screen, I don't know if that would help. If you can hear me,
I can hear you. Can you?
Excellent, you're coming. It's just that we can't see you.
Okay.
Yes, very well.
So, can you see me now?
I think maybe you're.
Okay, Tony, just
we can just go on.
Yeah.
So I will transition to, something very interesting is that you mentioned Kenya National Innovation Agency, and I'm sure you were speaking to the CEO. Having joined a few weeks ago, this is I'm busy trying to find my space around, but these are some of the things that I've also picked, and as I engage people, and I've always been thinking about them. Now that we have that mandate and knowledge of the gaps, I think we will look forward to reaching out and starting to discuss how do we potentially operationalize this in a collaborative manner and an engagement manner. So absolutely sure. Now there's another question here as we keep this conversation going. As ASEC, your attention is on the enablers and accelerators, hubs, and innovation centers and the like. So you don't have that direct linkage to the startups. Of course, there is like an indirect link. Maybe you may want to comment, and already you started off a little bit about how investment has kind of thrived over the last few years. There are local startups that are attracting funding. They're becoming internationally recognizable. We have a number of funding agencies that are opening up, VCs and so forth. Maybe you may want to speak now from an ASEC perspective, how that journey has been and what you see going forward, and how we can catalyze that funding infrastructure. Of course, we know, it just doesn't take one person. It's not just a funder. It also takes funding. It takes the startup and so forth. In our discussions the last 2 days, there is a lot of mindset shift that I have seen, because sometimes startups were looking at it as those guys versus us guys. But slowly I'm seeing the spirit of, you know what? We all want you to succeed. This is potentially going to be our contribution, and we're going to be partners in that journey. So maybe some thoughts from ASEC perspective on this.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I don't know whether you can see me, but I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. So so on your comment around, we work with enablers and not directly with startups. And I think in as much as that is the case, for me, my measure of success at ASEC really is the output. Are we getting better startups from our hubs, the hubs that we are supporting? And are we able to address, their capacities to deliver that success. And I feel as we go on, we will establish that direct linkage with startup. It might be not supporting them directly, but really trying to understand, the challenges they are going through, even as they get support from the enabling environment. On to your question about funding, which is something I'm really also quite keen about. And really the question here is, how do you build the innovation capital for an innovation economy? And I think this is a big question we have, because traditionally we know how to fund brick and mortar business. We have a credit and loan infrastructure that works through the banks, and that is great. If you have the that you can show the bank your track record, your transaction history, they will give you a loan, and they will give you a loan based on having done an evaluation on your ability to pay that loan. But when it comes to startups, we really have to understand that startups are financed in a very different way. And the reason I say this is startups ideally are supposed to be the main asset in these types of businesses is the teams and the ideas they are putting together. So, for a long time as a country, we have not been investing in ideas. What we invest in is real tangible things. You want to invest in something you can see. If it's a shop, this is a shop, this is how it makes money. But if somebody comes and tells you, what, I'm thinking about building a new way of helping people get water in Nairobi, clean water in Nairobi, and we are gonna sell online, and we're gonna maybe get this water from the air. You start asking yourself, wait a minute, so are you creating a new way of selling water, which essentially is a new business model? And because of that, if you just invest based on the ability of that entrepreneur to show you how he's been successful at this, at some point that does not exist. The business model for selling water that you get from the air at some point does not exist. But this entrepreneur they need capital, they need investment to actually validate and test and take that product to market. And so the way this is financed is by people who actually invest before they can actually see the final product. And the way this has been done in other economies that have inspired the startup movement, I think you know about the story of Silicon Valley, you know about the story of Israel, you know about the story of many countries that have really mastered how to invest in ideas. And the way they do it is there's a lot of funding that is available for R&D, for example, that is given by academia, it's given by government to really support IP that can be commercialized or taken to market. And I think that's an area as a country we really have to ask ourselves, what is happening? What is happening to our academic institutions? Are all these brilliant ideas and papers that are coming out of our universities just going to remain at the shelf level? What's the process for taking those to market? And I think there's a whole conversation around how do we help academia really benefit from the research that is going on? How do we create models that empower those students, those researchers, to see their innovations being used in the market in different forms? So there's a whole conversation there about how government and how academia can support commercialization of ideas. And that's why I believe we have agencies like Kenya and the National and the NRF. And I feel it's trying to really ask, how can we boost and be more intentional about that commercialization happening? Then the other side of this story is really on the private side of things. So when startups come up with these ideas, there's a stage called family, friends, and fools. It's famously called that because the people that support you initially are people who believe in who you are. They may not see the profit at that point, or the final product, but they believe in your abilities. They want to support you, and they will fund you to test that idea. Unfortunately, because of, I guess, the cultural disposition, or as a country, we are very good at giving money for social things, but not for business. If you come to me and you tell me, oh, I'm having a wedding, or we're trying to raise money to maybe take someone to school or hospital, I'm going to give you money. It's just being Kenyan. It's how we are. So I think what we need to learn as Kenyans, there's a new way of giving money to go into more sustainable things, and it's actually you can learn how to do it. There's a lot of organizations like Victoria Ventures in this country that is trying to train individuals on how to invest in ideas, and I think this is a space that really needs to be boosted, because even if you look at, for example, remittance from abroad, it's still the same story. We have a lot of money coming to fund, education, family. I want to build a house. I want to, and that it's in the billions of dollars, But there's actually an opportunity to channel some of these monies to go and support creating new entities, new ventures that will actually become profitable in future. And I think the education around this, the support for individuals to get into this is really needed for Kenya to fill that gap. Because what's happening is, if you're a startup in Kenya, at that stage, it's very difficult to raise money. And on one hand, you have, I would say, a vibrant venture capital, ecosystem of funds from abroad that are waiting. We want a startup that can absorb $250,000, and they don't want to hear anything that's below that. But if you don't fix that foundation to get that person first to be able to absorb 10,000, to be able to absorb 50,000, to be able to absorb 100,000, then you cannot expect a big pipeline down the line. So we need to create a lot of awareness about angel investing. We need to create programs that can help people get into that. And then we need to fix also the venture capital side. And on the venture capital side, where we are talking about how can we have funds being set up locally so that it's local money going into investing in technology and innovation. Right now, it's very difficult to do that, because if you look at our capital markets laws that are the ones that guide venture capital, I don't think they were built with that in mind, with helping to set up local funds in mind, because it's very expensive to set up funds here in Kenya. The tax obligations around venture capital are also quite high, and also investors do not feel protected enough. When they come into this jurisdiction, I think most of them, they prefer setting up funds, say in Mauritius or in Delaware, where this has grown as an industry, and there's a lot of incentives to investors to do the same. And I think if we really want to capitalize on having a sustainable innovation capital in Kenya, we have to ask ourselves, what will it take to set up funds locally in Kenya, and to actually have local investment going into local companies? Because that does not exist. There's been a lot of challenges and even conversations around, founders who are expatriates being funded and locals not getting funding, and to the extent that people actually see racial bias and things like this. And well, this cannot be refuted when you think about what the real solution is. It's really building local capacity. And I think as ASEC, what we're trying to do is actually to work with our enablers to understand, that if you're running an innovation hub, you need linkages to investors. You need angel investors, you need corporates, you need venture capital. So how do you build that community, and how do you help your startups to actually have a path to this investors? And I think we are also very much, trying to support initiatives like the Startup Act, because it's gonna also help in unlocking that. And we're very open to even collaborations that are going to enhance that investment side of things. And that includes opening up Kenya and positioning it for both local and international investors. You there, Tony?
Yeah. Some technology also breaks a bit, but we're back again. Bernard, I have to be very honest with you that you've nailed the point. I mean, you've actually made it very, very clear. And you've used very practical illustrations. I mean, we are a social society. Tutafanya mchango for, my wedding, and we'll spend a hell lot of money. And it's an investment. It's actually, you're investing in me because you want me to have a good relationship with you after that. And you will reap dividends of some kind. But how do we up this into the startup world? And I think I really like that idea of the startup fund. And speaking to me in my capacity now as CEO Kenya National Innovation Agency, this is something we're going to pick up real quick and try to figure out how practically it can get operationalized. And I am promising you that we're going to work very, very closely with ASEC and through your leadership. You mentioned the issue of commercialization and universities and how we move ideas. In the last 2 weeks that I've been in office, I have visited about 3 universities. I used to think about this thing, that it exists, until I saw it. And when I saw it, I got so shocked. I'm like, oh my goodness, where have we been? I was at, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, where they make biscuits out of insects. And, I brought some home and we had a great breakfast. But when I would tell people on that those biscuits are from grasshoppers, some of them, and cockroaches, by the way, some of them want to run outside and puke. But, but they have invented something. The next thing they want to see is, how do we scale this? How do we license this? How do we find this thing in the supermarket? I was at Dedan Kimathi last week. Actually not last week. It was on Wednesday. That's 2 days ago. And amazing stuff that is coming out of it. All these ventilators we're talking about, they are built, really digitized ones, and they have strengthened their science park pathway, but I didn't know until I arrived. And so one of the things that Kenya will definitely do is to support institutions so that we see startups coming out of this, managing the intellectual property issues, and so on and so forth. You're right, we've had discussions with the NRF about how to catalyze this. And I want to see government reaches a certain point, creates that environment, and then private sector runs with it. Those are all things we're going to try and propel. So it's very exciting. I feel like I have arrived somewhere and I'm not alone. Sometimes you can feel like you're the only one thinking. But when you find other people passionately articulating these issues, it's very exciting. And we can pull our efforts together based on the various strengths that we have. Thank you very much, Bernard. You have built on what Florence started from a policy perspective and aspirational from a government perspective. You've moved it into the private sector and the efforts that you've been doing and the path that you see ahead. Now we're going to be moving on to another gentleman who is very inspiring, called Mr. John Tanui, Engineer John Tanui. He's been very actively putting his hands in the dirty waters over the last several years, and we'd like to hear how much he has achieved and where things are going. So thanks very much, Bernard. I am going to come back to you. There's one email you sent me that I have not responded to. It has about 20 good ideas, and I am planning to respond to it and meet with you, and we begin to think about how we move to the next level. So we'll take a little break for now so people can freshen up as we move on to the next session.
Thanks, Tony, and all the best.
Thank you. Have a good one. All right, so we'll take a short break, about 5 or so minutes. We hope to be up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Engineer Tanui is already on board, and we'll sign up in a little moment. Welcome back again. We are at the Mlika Conference. As the name suggests, our job here is to try and shine some light. And through this program, where a number of startups were nominated by the stakeholders, and we all gravitated towards a jury that reviewed and kind of arrived at, some progressive, promising startups that we're going to be unveiling this afternoon. So we are event that has been running from Wednesday. We are here. We've had conversations on masterclass. We've had conversations on experiences of particular startups that have raised resources in the last few months or about a year or so. So that was our cohort yesterday morning. That's the second session. Then we moved on in the afternoon. We had a session on number of organizations that have funding programs, VCs that have resources to support the startup ecosystem. And we had deep conversation. And we transition to this morning where we have been looking at one of the stakeholders who are supporting the growth of the ecosystem. And we started off with Florence Kimata from the Ministry of Industry, Trade and and then now in the East Africa, ministry, and doing a lot of advisory on reforms for business transformation and changing the environment, improving the environment for business. And then we moved on to the founding chair of ASEC, very passionate gentleman who has been active in promoting the ecosystem and with that many aspects for the improvement of the ecosystem. So ASEC has been working with, startup enablers, hubs, accelerators, and so forth. And there are many initiatives that have come out of it. One is that hubs are speaking, individuals. He spoke about the desire to see more of a countrywide movement around improving the experiences of startups. He spoke about funding. He spoke about code of conduct within the sector. He spoke about the Startup Act that is under development and hopefully will be enacted soon. He spoke about an innovation fund, and he articulated well why he sees Kenya National Innovation Agency becoming, and a great partner and becoming operational at a timely, stage where issues of the innovation fund or a startup fund that I think Kenya National Innovation Agency action country to the next level. Now, I have a privilege of introducing my key guests whom I really admire based on some of the work that he has done and the commitment and enthusiasm that he has given this innovation ecosystem in Kenya. For a long time, the conversation around Konza Technopolis remained a little bit of an exciting idea. And some people used to feel, will it really ever happen? It's been many years down the road or time has passed. And then Tanui got into the driver's seat and he's moved things into action. Now, we want to know what is happening at Konza Technopolis. Sometimes we see one or two things in the newspaper, but let the man himself speak. And I've been following through, I've been seeing a number of initiatives happening. It's exciting, and it would be awesome to listen to Engineer Tanui, and then on in the afternoon, focusing now on unveiling the startups. My name is Dr. Tonio Mansa, currently the CEO of the National Agency. Excited to be 2 weeks old in that organization and doing what I love to do. So Engineer Tanui is right on board. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you, Daktari. First, congratulations for organizing this great event together with the other agencies to see the Association of Startups and SMEs Enablers, C4D, University of Nairobi, Mlika, I'm quite happy. And the second one is to congratulate you for the new role. We at the Innovation Ecosystem, we are very happy to see you to now join in this bigger platform, and we can see great things are going.
Thank you very much. I mean, I really appreciate now that you've mentioned the partners, Mlika program of GIZ, University of C4D Lab, out of that original spirit of Nairobi Innovation Week. We've been following through some of these things until now they're becoming a reality, and desire is now to continue from here on an annual basis, create specific initiatives that support elements of the ecosystem, and then we figure out how to tie them together. My dream is that Mlika next year will be part of the National Innovation Forum, where we bring all these VCs and all these apps, and let's engage and let's create the links. As all this work that we started as part of Nairobi Innovation Week. And then, of course, on the second note, thanks very much. I'm so glad to be mandated to champion the innovation ecosystem in the country. I mean, it's extremely humbling, and I feel very excited because I've been, trying to make some of these things move. And now here is the mandate. And I'm going to run like, life depends on it. And now, people like yourself who've been in the space for a while, collaborating together, I think it's something that will be very exciting. So, engineer, thanks for coming. Now, we've got about 45 minutes, 50 minutes or so of engagement. I think a good place to start is tell us about Konza. Introduce what you've been able to get done, and then we can move into a set of questions. I can see already a few coming on board. We've got a number of people online, kind of expecting to hear quite from you.
Thank you. So I'll take you through introduction of Konza, where we are, and also to speak about Konza is actually an agent of promoting the startup culture and enhancing what's already happening within the country, to see how we can improve our speed, how we can improve the scale, and what role Konza Technopolis will play. I will make a presentation to just highlight. So Konza Technopolis is one of the flagship projects under the country's Vision 2030 blueprint, and it's been part of the transition of the country. As you know, within the Vision 2030, we have three key pillars. That is the economic pillar, the social, and the political. So within the economic pillar, there are a number of projects which the government initiated to play a critical role in the transformation of the country. And Konza Technopolis represents the transformation, especially in the area of technology and innovation. Globally, there is a lot of things happening in the innovation ecosystem. There is a huge outlook. All of us know the big stories, the Silicon Valley, and the big startups that have arisen from that ecosystem and the rest of the world. And some of the technology companies, if you compare 2008 and 2018, you can see the change in terms of global companies ranking. Currently, of course, technology is playing a key role. Now, even post-COVID, there is indications that this will even change more, that we will see more technology companies taking the lead. And so it's a very interesting direction. And you can see some of the rankings. There is this document I got about the global startup ecosystem produced by Genome Ecosystem, and they did some ranking, and you can see some of the global interesting innovation ecosystems that are really doing well. Silicon Valley is still being ranked globally #1 in all aspects. We can see the others are rising, and the future looks actually it will not be just another one Silicon Valley, but probably 30 plus innovation ecosystems. And we hope Kenya, or what we now call the Silicon Savannah, will play a role. And there are many factors that you can see these rankings. They have looked at the funding, which some of these have been discussed in the earlier discussions. We talk about talent. There's also issues of knowledge. So it's quite important for us to see what's happening in the global scale as we act at our local level. So Kenya has made quite significant progress. The earlier speakers are able to listen to what Florence shared about what the government has done, the transformation is doing, and also was able to listen to Bernard Jira about coordination and the things that are happening within the innovation ecosystem and the need for coordination. The country has made some progress so far. Things like ease of doing business, which is part of the transformation in the government, and Kenya's ranking has greatly improved to a very good rating, and this plays a critical role. And I saw in earlier discussions where the time it takes to register a company has changed, and those are represented in the platform of our ecosystem. Our global innovation index has greatly improved. We were number 4. We've risen to even beating South Africa, being the 77 globally, with probably one country ahead of us, I think number 63, which is South Africa. And you can see with the improvement and actions that are happening, it is possible now for us to come together and even set a target to say within this period, whether 3 years or maximum 5 years, we should be among the top 50 nations in terms of ranking of global innovation index. Funding has been talked as a great issue that will promote innovation ecosystem, and Kenya has made indication and interest to really improve in this area. We have not made much progress, but our target is to reach the 2%, and I think with the coordination and the efforts that are ongoing, this can be actually enhanced. There is also one of the critical players in terms of innovation. One of them is, of course, the infrastructure within the ICT network. Kenya is ranking very well. We have sufficient number of innovation hubs. We can see now the associations like the Association for Countrywide Innovation Hubs, the Association of Startups and SME Enablers. These platforms all play a critical role in addition with what the government is doing. Electric last mile power to the rest of the country will really play a critical role in advancing the Kenya's innovation ecosystem. And we are standing at a good platform as a country. We've reached this because of the efforts of many individuals, corporates, and organizations. You can see the history of many startups, M-Copa, the Little Cup. You can see the historical like Ushahidi, and many new ones who are coming. Others, their names might not be yet very big, but they are already making a contribution. And many efforts like what Dr. Tony Omwansa mentioned about what's happening at our universities. That Kimati is leading with the first Science Park here, and also at CONSA, and the government already developed what we call the 10-year framework for science parks in the country. So in terms of infrastructure to enable more things to happen, the country is really making good progress. The enabling environment for us going forward as a country is one is good infrastructure, and this includes the ICT infrastructure, and ICT has played a big role, not only for startups or innovation, but even the growth of SMEs and the companies that are going global in whatever nature. ICT is very critical, and we as a country are privileged that our ICT infrastructure is among the very best. If there is any part that we feel good in terms of penetration, the coverage, the data speeds, the kind of infrastructure deployed, it's good, but of course there is room for improvement. But this is going to play a critical role as we go forward towards newer and better technologies to improve ICT infrastructure. The entrepreneurship culture we are very good in this. East Africa knows us as Kenya is very domineering and capable to actually take very challenging roles. So we believe as a country, we stand very strong, and this is one of our enabling power, and we really need to enhance this. And to see what the country is doing, we have several innovation hubs across the country. The Ministry of ICT, together with the other government agencies and ministries, have come up with what the constituency innovation hubs. And if you talk about every constituency in the country, to have at least 3 innovation hubs, this will really put a very strong grassroots platform that will transform this country. And now that Ministry of ICT has also brought in the Ministry of Youth, and there were empowerment centers which were also within that ministry. Combining all these, we will really have a strong platform to take this country forward. What needs to be done, of course, is what was discussed in the earlier topic about coordination, to see that we improve the coordination. And this is the challenge to all of us, Kenya and the other institutions responsible for innovation, is how now we can improve the coordination. Of course, there is the enabling environment, which includes the policy, the educational system, availing facilities, and you can see this also through the constituency innovation hubs. The government is providing ICT, the establishment of the necessary institutions within various ministries that support innovation. We have in the Ministry of Industry and Enterprise Development, we have in the Ministry of Education, Ministry of ICT. So we have sufficient policies that can actually transform this country even in a faster way. And Concert Technopolis also will be a key player as we go forward. So the situation at the ground, as already explained, it can be seen in respect to the innovation centers, constituency hubs. So the picture, bringing all this. So what we need is actually our coordination. I like comparing the potential we have in the innovation with our strength in sports, especially athletics. If you see how our athletics are coordinated across the country, there are events, activities with clear recording, with clear information. If you want to select a Kenyan to go and participate in any race across the world, the information is there. You know who performed in which season, what, and this is what we probably need to do within our innovation ecosystem. How do we bring the innovation hubs? How do we coordinate the hackathons that are going on? How do we coordinate events like what we're having today here, a webinar like this? All of them, that it is feasible to all the actors, the stakeholders, that we can be able to create a strong movement that will take this country a big to the top leagues. So there's still a number of challenges, of course, within the ecosystem, and these are the things that we need to be addressed. Some is still some policies which some have made. We made very good progress, but there's still areas to improve, and even some of our hackathons or innovation competitions, we probably need to rethink how we do our competitions and hackathons, so that it's not just about just winning. It should be actually offering an opportunity, so that on success of any of these events, we see people being given opportunities to pilot their ideas, and so that we increase the rollout of ideas into the market, because the real testing of success is out there in the market. We could have exciting solutions, exciting ideas, but when it cannot succeed in the market, then it will not be useful to the country and the economy. So we still see insufficient commitment towards leveraging innovation, and that's what about opening real opportunities, so that one success of an innovation competition, one is given actually an opportunity. And also I've been talking to a number of my colleagues, how do we make these innovation competitions part of our procurement processes within public and even private sector, so that when one goes through that process, one is able to secure an opportunity and be able to co-create with either the owner of that institution, or really open as an opportunity for investment for the innovator. There is still need for enhancement of the research and development ecosystem, and this is linkage. Our innovation hubs cannot exist on its own. We must link it to knowledge, and this means linking it to the academia, because if we do not link it to the academia, we will be standing on not deep root, because some of the biggest successful innovation ecosystems is driven by linkage to universities. Silicon Valley cannot exist without the Stanford, and many other research triangle in North Carolina in the USA has relied on 3 universities, the Duke University, the State University of North Carolina, and the other university there. So it needs to be linked to knowledge, and even within our country, to see now the role our universities are playing. We need to enhance this and to really bring them closer, so that there is stronger partnership between the innovation ecosystem, the innovation hubs, and the universities. And C40 is a very good example because it's inside university. So it has the potential to give faster results and better results. So what's the role of Consa Technopolis in the transformation that we require in the innovation ecosystem? And one of the questions, of course, everyone will say, what's the status of Consa? Before that, just share what's the vision of Consa Technopolis. We would like to see Consa to be part of the global technology and innovation hubs. In the earlier report from the Genome Ecosystem 2019 report, when you see the top 50 innovation hubs, Africa is not represented in any of these. So we hope, working together with all the other actors, we can actually make the Silicon Savannah feasible at the global stage. And this is our vision as Consa Technopolis, to be a global technology and innovation hub. The advantage we have also is that we are not building this in isolation. We are aiming to develop a sustainable smart city and an innovation ecosystem that will make contribution towards Kenya's knowledge-based economy. So we have opportunity to work with many stakeholders. And we have 2 key pillars that we need to work on for us to achieve the target that we are aiming at. The first one is to really put in place international, a global world-class infrastructure. And the second one is to build a strong knowledge economy. So with these 2 key pillars, we will be able to stand strong and support the 3 core areas that we want to focus on. And the 3 core areas we are focusing is ICT and ITS, that's IT-enabled services. The second one is life sciences and engineering. And we have aimed to really specialize and put this as our focus so that we can actually make a significant contribution. And the direction in the future is that actual innovation hubs or ecosystem will be known on their focus areas. So you'll have others being specialists in life sciences, engineering, or you can have several, but you have one as dominant. And for Consa Technopolis, we are looking to have 3 key activities in each of these sectors. One is research and development and innovation. The second is training or education. The other one is actual commercial activity. So we think this is what will create the next necessary mix to make our dreams possible. Where are we in the development of Consa Technopolis? First, we have to note that we are building a city from a greenfield, which is really an uncommon thing. It's the first time we are doing this in our country, that a fresh green city is built from a greenfield, meaning where you have no infrastructure, turning a farmland into a smart city. So we've got to address the basic infrastructure, including power, which we are happy that with the agencies like KETRACO, Kenya Power, we have made very significant progress, that there is a vision power now to support construction stage and the early stage of Consa Technopolis with 3 substations to support Consa for now. We are now doing another major substation inside Consa with the support of KETRACO, a 400 kV substation. So this will guarantee power, capacity, and reliability. We are also working on the other aspects like water, and with other government agencies. You hear there's a project called Twakedam, which is about 70 kilometers away from Konza. It's also being worked on to support Konza Technopolis water needs for long term. We have other alternative sources, boreholes, pipeline from Mount Kilimanjaro. These are the ones which will support us. The other important thing is our connectivity. We are privileged that we lie on the main corridor of the major fiber connections to our country, to the submarine. So this is a strength that we have at Konza, that we will have sufficient fiber connectivity. Currently, we have NOFP connected. Kenya Power is finalizing, and also we are putting a dedicated link between the Konza National Data Center and the submarine cables through Teams. We also have our first building at Konza Technopolis, and that's where our offices are, and we are already operating from this building. So Konza is becoming real as of now. We also have the first institution, that's the Research Institute, which the designs have been completed. We are expecting to unveil the contractor within another few weeks. The National Data Center is phase 1 of it is operational. The phase 2 is going to be ready by the end of the year. So we are able to host the national digital platform, national data center with sufficient processing and storage capacity. It's still a major construction site. It's good to note that we are still actually at the construction stage, and I would encourage anyone interested to see how a new city is being built from scratch. See how we are world-class infrastructure and also smart. So these works at the site, we have contractors comes, we have machineries at the site, we have also machinery and works off-site, because we have to get material from the neighboring community. And also we are thinking, how will we rehabilitate these sites after construction? What you can see now is what's happening outside the Konza Technopolis. One greatest achievement for us now is that we have a functional national data center at Konza Technopolis, which is about 1.6 petabytes capacity. So this is one of the biggest in the region. We have it's certified Uptime Institute, Tier 3 national data center. So we'll be able to offer sufficient support to both private and public. Will be able to offer co-location, will be able to offer bare metal servers, cloud computing. We'll also be able to be a DR for other data centers. We'll also be able to offer several other services, managed services, consulting services. And what the pictures you can see there, the lower picture is phase 1, which is functional. The middle picture there is the secondary or the phase 2, which is now under construction. The top picture there is the current or a few weeks ago status. There's better progress as of now. So Konza is adopting several approaches to enhance the innovation ecosystem. One is really looking at the policy and enabling environment and trying to build collaboration with all the relevant agencies so that we can bring the signage that's required, whether agencies within Ministry of Education, Ministry of Industry, and also our ministry within the Ministry of ICT, so that we can bring signage and bring the value from the policies, legislative frameworks which are already in place to the benefits of the startups. And even other related, like the Special Economic Zones Act, which also is enabling to all companies with services and products for export. So we think also for digital technology companies, these are very good advantage to take advantage of. We have a number of programs to enable the growth of the knowledge economy. The Research Institute, Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, will play a very critical role in working with the other institutions. We are also building leverage with several partners, whether innovation hubs, the academia, to see how we can move and also attract investment. We've done a number of we've carried out a number of initiatives. We started a program, we're calling it Konza Innovation Ecosystem Initiative, which has been running for about 2 years now. We also started working with our university students, where we have hackathons running. We've also started working with the young, those who are within 9 years to 13 years, with what we're calling kid boot camps, to really start creating the potentials even amongst our very young people. And early this year, when COVID started, we could not run some of our programs physically, so we did the first innovation hub, which we call it the Great COVID-19 Innovation Challenge, which really brought a number of partners to work with us. We had UNDP, we had the High Commission of UK in Kenya, we had the Unsettled Foundation, the Association of Country-Wide Innovation Hubs, amongst others, and some of the technology organization, Oracle, Huawei, Cisco, and many others. And the result was quite exciting to see over 300 submissions from across for 7 counties. And this really opened an eye for us on the potential of this country. We saw more than 53% of the submissions being focused on health, 28% dignified work, and about 19% about food systems. And the potentials are good. We are currently working with a number of these innovators and now startups to see how we can work together. And this will inform us about what more we need to do to really make Konza Technopolis an enabler of startups in Kenya. So further to that, there are a number of companies that the startups that now are working with us, those who participated. Some have gone ahead and being recognized at both national, even by the president during some of his speeches, and some have gone ahead to receive support from some of our partners. Some have got chance to get good quality board members from some of these institutions, universities, from abroad and locally, and we are looking forward to work with these startups to the next level. And we are looking forward to work even more with Tony Omwanza with Kenya to see how we can really bring more coordination so that all these activities are not in silos, so that we can enhance it. So some of the activities we are looking forward now to enhance as we build on the innovation ecosystem is to see that we have forums, and we've started monthly forums, webinars, where we have a lead person from government, private sector, development partners playing a role. We've done before, which we get PSS, PS of Health has led and spoken in one, PS of crop production and research has led one, PSICT has been the host of these events and has held one. We've had one with the environment with PS Kipto, and this on 23rd we have one more. So there's a number of engagements that are going on. We are also working with our stakeholders, having activities and focus sector-specific engagement. And we've seen quite progress on these. At times we even work with financiers and developers. We are working with the specific sectors, whether it is research, and we will have now more coordination. Looking forward working with Dr. Mwanza on how we can enhance this. So there's a number of activities, and recently we are also looking at how to focus on the environment. Because the advantage we have in Konza is that we are not just focused on a building or one space. We are actually focused on a whole environment of a city. So how can we inbuild advantages that can enhance or promote creativity, growth of startups, growth of ideas into businesses? And one of the critical role importance is the environment. So one of the things you'll be seeing us talking more about is greening of cities, green infrastructure, and world-class infrastructure. So that is the big picture of what we are working on at Konza Technopolis, and laying the foundations to be actually the Silicon Savannah, and this cannot be possible for us to achieve by working in isolation. And we've started actually collaboration. We've enhanced our discussions with Ministry of Industry. We recently had CS of Industry to visit Konza, and we had engagement together with the agencies within the Ministry of Industry. And now we are enhancing that collaboration so that our startups can take advantage of the whole country's what the country offers, the value that we have. There's a lot of advantages from the Ministry of Industry. We also doing the same with the Ministry of Education. The issue of science technology parks is one of them. The issue of the Research Institute at Konza, Kenya KAIST, is one great opportunity. We are also in discussions with NACOSTI. We are in discussions also with private or specific initiatives by the PS of university education to see how to enhance the collaborations. We are also in discussions with Mwanza, and we will look forward to really building on that so that we can enhance that collaboration and open the possibilities in a faster way. We also enhancing collaborations across the rest of the world, and we recently had ambassador of Israel who visited Konza, and we're looking how can we build synergy between the Israeli innovation ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. It's one of the most vibrant in the world, and how to link it to our Silicon Savannah. So we have a lot to do. We are also building a number of collaborations between us and Korea. Besides the Research Institute, we have initiated programs to open opportunities in the digital media. We visited some of their innovation ecosystem on digital meat products, and it is amazing. And the potential for our country is so huge. What we need to do is open up, increase coordination, work with all the stakeholders, government to continue to improve on the ease of doing business. We unpacked and open more potentials to see our startups grow, SMEs, because the future of our country is the growth of startups, the growth of SMEs. It will open opportunities for employment. It will open opportunities to grow our GDP, grow wealth, and really take our country to the next level. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Wow. When presentations of this nature go up, you feel like you're having goosebumps. You feel like, you are getting a new lease of life. That's very exciting. Thanks very much, CEO, for taking us through this progress. And to many people, sometimes we don't know. Either they don't know because they don't engage. So this is another privilege we have to bring to light some of these developments that are taking place. First of all, I would like to say that I have a couple of questions that have come from the delegates using different channels. So I'm going to send a few of them. But before I do so, let me now speak. Now, let me speak not as a moderator, but let me speak as the CEO of Kenya National Innovation Agency. The last 2 weeks, I've been trying to settle, also trying to understand how my space is. And some of the initiatives I want to do starting next month is, engagements and beginning to think about how do we synergize, how do we build on what has already been going on. So in other words, I'm saying early October, I am in Konza. All we need now to know is to fix dates. I've gotten all the necessary facilitation to enable me to start moving. So I want to spend a full day in Konza.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana. You have mentioned the issues of, collaboration, national coordination. How do we make sure we have a calendar of things that are happening across the entire year, and people feed in things as we go along? We minimize overlaps and sometimes we need to synergize better. Things like Nairobi Innovation Week, how do we move that up the value chain so that we have a national event where everyone puts, their attention towards, and everything that happens the entire year is building on that. How do we get more and more investors in the ecosystem? And that's something I would lose sleep to do. to ensure that we are making progress in that direction. Universities, as you rightfully said, one of the mandates of Kenya is to energize and propel the commercialization of the intangible assets of universities. I've had an opportunity to visit a few the last 2 days, 2 weeks rather, and I've already gotten a glimpse. I mean, there's quite some opportunity out there that all people need is they just need to be guided on how do we commercialize. I spoke to a few corporates and industry players who have also been trying to figure out where are these innovations and inventions from universities that we can support to scale. Why don't I find all these yogurts in the supermarket? Why don't I find the biscuits and the soaps and the ventilators? Where do I get them? So one of the things we hope to do in Kenya is to figure out how do we, create this database and try to create a match. And then not only do we create a match and then facilitate that match to function. What are the requirements? What would be the legal framework? What would be, the marketing framework? What options do we have for, enhancing? Is it licensing? Is it establishing startups? And so on and so forth. This way, the academics know where they stop. They don't need to stress themselves too much beyond that. You've just mentioned the innovation forum, the webinars, and I started asking myself, when do I book my slot so that we can also give our contribution collaboratively. So it's very exciting to see that we have a lot in common in terms of where we're going, and we've got these mandates, and all we need to strengthen, how we work together. So when I visit, we will build more and more on these conversations. So let me pick a few questions for you from the audience. One is asking whether the startups come and camp in Konza Technopolis, or that they are working from remote, from wherever they're based, and then interact with you. That's one question. The second is around the framework for collaboration. I think that's fairly general because it depends on who exactly is trying to collaborate with you. Because I think it is more from a startup's perspective. I've seen an innovation hub asking, what would it take to collaborate with you? Then the third one is, are universities establishing campuses, or do they have presence in the Konza Technopolis? I think if you took those three, then I will give you another set, then based on how much time we will be having.
Okay, thank you for that. First, welcome to Konza. We'll discuss those details of engagement, and the monthly webinars is something we would like to plug into the calendar, so that it's part of the national, and we all even agree on the topics of this webinar. For the startups, we've engaged a number of them in the past, and what we've done is we would bring some of these startups to Konza for a few days. They come, if you saw in my presentation, we have a campsite that can support about 500 people. So before the COVID, we could actually bring academia up to over 100 people to spend there, and we could even have academia. We've hosted the professors there to really work with us on specific topics with some of these startups. And also we are privileged that also Machakos University is nearby, so we work very closely with the Machakos University. Machakos University also, we've enabled them to have an innovation hub, and even a center for IoT, which is currently operational. And so sometimes even some of the university students can stay in Machakos. From Machakos University to Konza is less than about 15 minutes. So where to stay and what is no longer an issue. And within another few months, we hope Konza will address the issue of accommodation. So we still handle the two, both offsite and staying at the Konza. And in linking this to what kind of collaboration and framework we can have with startups, one is we are looking at Konza to be the home of our national startups. This is where we will of the startups that have matured and wants to scale and wants to go global. This is the place they will call their home. Because as you saw in our vision, we are saying we want to be a global hub of innovation, a leading global hub of innovation and technology. This is only possible when we have startups who can actually call Consa home and see them grow to be probably our Fortune 500 companies. We believe in the future, the ranking that we saw there, that one of the startups that we will see, that Consa Technopolis will have played a role, of course, together with all the other actors. And to say what kind of collaboration are we building with the other government agencies. We as Consa Technopolis Development Authority, our role is to build that place, to ensure there are roads, there are utilities, and everything is smart and it's world class. We make sure the ecosystem is good. But most of the actions will be done by several individual agencies. So universities will give them a platform to do. Ministries will come and do what is their specialty. The role of Kenya, it is not only in one location, it's a national. So Consa is part of that national platform that we are giving to all the agencies, and even our meetings with the agencies within Ministry of Industry is to see that they take advantage of this platform, because it's one of those projects that has been well planned. It's taken a while, but a lot of thinking has gone into it. A lot of consultancies have been involved. Many global leading professionals have input. So we believe this gives the country one of the highest possibilities of success. So we are open to suggestions. If a startup wants an office, if a startup wants an address, like the 316 startups that we had, we offered to give a number of them as a desk at Consa and an address at Consa. Very soon we will also be offering the digital address, the digital platform that you love your data, your applications hosted at Consa. Your physical desk also will be at Consa. We are also even giving the box number. We have now box number Consa Technopolis. So our startups have an opportunity to have actually an address, a physical address called Consa Technopolis with a box address located there. The last one is about the universities, what kind of presence. We would like to see more collaboration in Consa. We would not probably want to see every university putting a campus there. And of course, there's another transformation happening within the Ministry of Education. But the first thing is the Research Institute is actually a university which offers master's and PhD program. So this will be actually a collaboration, because the input to this will come from all our universities. And we are hoping a shared kind of infrastructure for undergraduate university will be possible at Consa, where we have a library which is shared, sporting facilities which is shared, a number of facilities where even teaching classes is shared, but universities can still run their unique, specialized niche programs. You can have JKUI running a niche program, Strathmore running a niche program, University of Nairobi running a niche program. So we still work on that, but that's our dream, to see that we bring coordination and the very best of our country to be present at Consa Technopolis.
Wow. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. The questions are many that I probably might not be able to post them to you, but I think what we can do is I can try to figure out how to send them to you, or even when we meet, and then we kind of consolidate responses. Some of them may come from your team, and then I can circulate to the broader community. Because, what we built here about the, 100 startups that are very promising, as we increase their visibility, it's an ongoing journey. It's not going to end now. It's something we want to run over the next 5 to 10 years, so that we always know what is our cream and what kind of support do they need. They have questions, and they can always push them to us. So I'll probably ask the last one question. Someone is asking here whether Consa Technopolis is 100% funded by government, or are you funded through programs and partnerships? And then the other question that I think you can address at this point in time is, do you have tech companies based in Konza. I think he's mentioning Microsoft, IBM, and so forth, so that when students or startups are part of that, they are able to link with this, as a one-stop shop kind of thing. So I think those two will kind of use that to close the session.
Thank you. In respect to funding of Konza, as you're aware, this is one of the national flagship projects of Vision 2030. So government of Kenya is funding the basic infrastructure. It's envisioned that 10% of this will be funded by the Kenyan government. The project is estimated at $14.5 billion. So the Kenyan government will do the basic infrastructure, and the rest of the development will be private sector. So we've started attracting private sector. We have seen investment coming through establishment of hospitals, residential, office block, and many others, which are now at advanced stage of starting. The other is our programs, like the innovation programs. We've been able to get partnership support from other government agencies, private sector, and technology companies like Cisco, Oracle, Microsoft, and our partners from Germany, Israel, and UK started supporting some of our programs in the innovation ecosystem. Tech companies, we are building a collaboration with the partners in the technology space. One of them is how do we offer a unified solution using the national data center. So we are bringing together the technology partners we have on board. This includes Oracle, Microsoft, Huawei, and the others, to see that we are able to serve both public and private sector as one. And these discussions are at advanced stage, and we have already got expressions of interest from a number of technology companies from across the continents, US, Europe, Asia, Japan, Korea. And we can see the interest is growing, especially now as the infrastructure approaches a significant progress. So there will be a number of these tech firms in Konza Technopolis.
Okay. And I think this is a conversation that definitely continues. And now that also we have a substantive CEO Kenya, I think we're going to find a way to get as much of this information out to the broader community using different channels. I think there is gold here. And Konza is going to play a very critical role in the transformation of the country, and we stop looking like we are struggling. I think, when you read stories of Singapore, for example, is my latest book that I was looking at. You got independence at about the same time. The population was barely 2 million people. Based on certain steps and actions and leadership, the story is very different right now. And I think we have that opportunity to learn from the past, set the targets and run with them, because no one is going to build the country other than ourselves. Yeah. I think it's great having you, engineer, and really impressed with the work. We'll continue with this. So thanks very much for now. We will close at this point, and we'll continue the conversation in another forum. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana. So for the rest of the audience, we are now taking a break until 2:30, where we will be unveiling our top 100 startups. So it's going to be a shorter program this afternoon, and we basically focus on the top 100. We'll have some remarks from the embassy in Germany, and then we will also proceed to do the 100 to number 11, and then we'll also reveal the 100. The 10. Then we'll have some engagement, some Q&A. Some people will dial in and kind of try to discuss about how we move from here. We give special thanks to our various partners, University of Nairobi, C4D Lab, and Make IT, GIZ program, Kenya National Innovation Agency, ASEC, who have all been enthusiastic about this. All I can tell is that going forward, we are only going to make this movement bigger. As you can tell, Cons and Technopolis are kind of partners who would be interested in this kind of initiative because they are stakeholders. Thanks very much. There have been a lot of questions. I was only able to address some of them. And let's keep the conversations going on our hashtag Mlika Startups and then Mlika Kenya's 2020. And then we've got, you can tag in Make IT, University of Nairobi, Mlika Startups, Bafunde, who are hosting us, and so on and so forth. And hope to see you at 2 as we gravitate towards completing this program. Thank you very much and have a good one.